Ali, Atrévete a lo Imposible, Season 1, Episode 2. Welcome back. We have Denise Garcia Mesa. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come onto the podcast. Very grateful. So let's get into it. Who is Denise Garcia Mesa?
All right. So my name's Denise Garcia Mesa, and I'm going to be a senior computer science student at the University of South Carolina. I am the daughter of 2 Mexican immigrants. I was born and raised in upstate South Carolina, and I'm currently an intern at a large consulting firm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Computer science and minor in economics.
Yes.
That's very impressive. Tell us about it.
Well, I've known that I wanted to major in computer science for a very, very long time, since 5th grade, actually. And I wasn't the first person in my family to go to college. It was actually my older brother. And when he was younger, when I was in the 5th grade, he started looking at colleges, and he invited me over to the desktop we had in the living room. And we just looked at a couple colleges, and then he turned to me and asked me what I was interested in, what I wanted to major in. And I really didn't understand the concept yet. I knew I was going to college because my parents really wanted me to, and I liked school. But I didn't understand the concept of majors and having to pick one. And he was like, well, what do you like? What do you like to do? And I was like, well, I like computers. And so then he told me about computer science, and that made sense to me, and it's made sense to me since then. And so now we are almost 4 years into the degree, and it's been crazy. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you've experienced?
Well, first generation, first and foremost, because I grew up low income, and so there was a lot more resources given to the people that could financially get those resources. And like having boot camps when they were early on, access to technology was a big kicker, because I didn't get my first laptop till like high school, but we didn't even have a family computer until like 5th grade, like when my brother was starting to apply to college and stuff like that, and he needed a laptop and stuff. I don't know. So they just have more resources and more access to things earlier on. So coming in, like, not having that was a challenge at first, and that's something I struggle with, knowing that everybody starts at a different path in computer science, and that's very normal. Like, some people will start with no experience in coding. Some, like me, will have like maybe a year in like one language, and then other people will have like multiple projects already done before they even step into like their first actual computer science course. So it's like that's difficult, because sometimes you feel like you're always trying to catch up when they already had like an advantage in the first place. But that doesn't really mean anything in the long run, I feel like, because if you're passionate and you learn something, it's like your like 5 projects that you make throughout your course like can be enough, and so it's like putting that time and effort and passion into those 5 projects will show and will be enough to get you where you want to be. So like at the end of the day, even if they start before you, it doesn't mean you can't reach your goals because you didn't start when they started.
Yeah, no, and it's very impressive that you knew what you're going to do, or you've known what you've wanted to do since the 5th grade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit difficult, at least from my perspective, at the age of 18, like deciding what I wanted to do for the rest of my life was challenging for me, and I would assume challenging for many.
Have you talked about your major in finance in the last episode?
I have not. I have not spoken about my
that you have a degree.
No, I haven't.
So when did you know you wanted to major in finance?
So funny story. My dad was a big finance guy in terms of like reading financial books. An individual that he followed a lot was Dave Ramsey, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's pretty popular. And my dad would pay me like $20 to read a book.
Oh.
So if I read a book, I might be lowballing it. It might have been around $50 where he'd be like, hey, if you read this, I'll give you $50.
Okay.
So a lot of the books happen to be finance related. And both of my parents have always had their own businesses, or for a very long time have had their own businesses. So I grew up around it as well.
That makes sense.
Law school was a big possibility for me for a really long time. I wouldn't say that it's completely erased from my future, but I studied economics just in case.
Yeah.
For as a
so
pre-law.
You didn't major in finance?
I double majored.
Oh, okay.
So I double majored in finance and economics, and I double minored in political science and Spanish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You still got a little taste in political science.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I dipped into it once again, just in case.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's funny that you say that about law school, because even though I did know I wanted to study computer science in 5th grade, like the major has been hard, and I want to say that it's going to be difficult. It's time consuming. It's like demanding, but the rewards, it's very rewarding if you can get through the program. So I still recommend it, despite it being like demanding. But it's funny that you say law school, because like the average typical college student, I mean, I did have a little doubt. Like I started not doing that well in this one class, and it made me doubt my whole like career up to that point. Like academic career, because I was like, wow, if I can't learn this, like if I'm struggling in this fundamental class and I have like 3 years ahead of me, like this is a lot. So like my sophomore year, like I like struggled with like if I could do it, and that scared me away from the major, and I almost changed it to psychology, which is very like left field. But also I also thought about law school, because I was like, okay, well I can just get through 4 years of computer science, and like maybe I just don't take the traditional software engineering route. And I mean, I'm not really, because I'm in the consulting firm. But I was thinking about like I could just do a whole switch afterwards. And I took an LSAT and I didn't do too bad. And I was like, this could be real for me. Like, but I didn't pay it. I took a practice one.
Okay.
So I didn't take the whole LSAT, different.
Okay.
But because I read an article about how computer science majors do really well on the logic game part of the LSAT, and so I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like I think logically, like they literally teach you to think logically in computer science. So I was like, okay, maybe I could just be like a cool lawyer. That wouldn't be bad at all, I from software developer to like lawyer, that's not bad, right? So I was like, okay, maybe I could do this. But then my brother had a real conversation with me and was like, do you really want to study law, or are you just afraid of what could be or what could happen? And that was the truth. I really sat myself down. I'm like, this is what I've always wanted to do, and I should stick with it and see how it turns out, even because I would say that's my biggest fear, just the unknown of not knowing what will happen. Because I would say that I'm kind of afraid of the dark, but I'm more afraid of not being able to see my surroundings and that unknown more aspect than it being dark outside.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, so he like really sat me down and made me think about it, and then I came to the conclusion that yeah, I'm just scared, but hey, I'm glad I didn't change, because it's finally working out and like things are finally moving and rolling, and now I'm like excited for the future and stuff. But yeah, I think that's real. So despite knowing what I've always wanted to major in, I still had struggles with like trying to stay on the traditional route, which I feel like everybody like thinks it's like a straight line. Like you study, you get your internship, you study again, you get a job. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that, like you don't have to follow what everyone thinks is the correct path to still get to what your goal is. So I went to the SHIP National Convention, SHIP, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I'm going to be the president of the chapter at UofSC this year.
Congratulations.
Very exciting. And so I went to the first national convention last year in Charlotte, North Carolina. And this was actually when I first found out about the company I work in. They sponsored a breakfast, and they had a woman speak. It was an all-women event, like to promote like women in STEM. And the speaker was a Brazilian woman, and she talked about how the company had helped her find her love in technology and flew her out from Brazil to America, and that's why she was there. And so it was a very, very inspiring story, and I really, really liked it. That's how I found out about my company. But what stood out to me the most of her presentation is she had a picture, and it was how she thought her life was going to go to get to her goals, and it was a straight line. And then the next picture was like ups and downs and curves and loop-de-loops of like, but still ending up at her goal. So it's like, just don't cut yourself short. Even if this isn't going the way you thought it would go, doesn't mean you're not taking a step forward to what your goal is.
Yeah, no, and that's a big thing. I mean, and I think that's also a realization of adulthood.
Yeah.
Is you can plan everything out and it can go from A to B to C, but reality is it rarely happens like that.
I agree.
It in fact, like, it's right. It goes up and down, and as
dudes.
long as you work towards where you want to be, like, you'll get there. It's just life happens, things happen.
Yeah, and I'm actually reading a very popular book. Well, I'm not reading it. Okay, I'm listening to the audiobook, so it's a little different. But it's Atomic Habits. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
It's a very popular book, right? And so like I've never gotten into self-help books, so like this was like left field for me. Usually I like reading like the rom-coms, you know, the very those books. Colleen Hoover, even though I heard she's problematic, but anyways, but yeah, Atomic Habits, and it's really resonating with me about how like he just talks about like if every day you take a step forward, that eventually it'll just all add up, right? So it's like creating those habits of every day moving one step closer to your goal, even if it's like this small, you know, at the end it'll add up and eventually you will become that person that you want to become. Every situation's differently. Like I think for the people that are like entrepreneurs, like for me specifically, if I had an idea and I had an entrepreneur, I still would put that on the side compared to my like college degree, because I would feel like more comfortable having that to lean back on. You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's for me, it's always like I want to make sure I have a backup plan.
Yeah.
For me specifically, because the world is scary. Like I don't know, but like again, if you really really believe in your idea and you think you could do it, like kudos to you. Because I mean that's how Facebook was made. That's how, like, you know,
that's true.
like.
That's true.
But for me specifically, I would have too much anxiety to just like drop out of school and like go specifically one way.
Yeah. I've met quite a few people, and it's, I mean, for many it's gone well.
Yeah,
for others it's maybe they go back.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's a different path, right? Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their path and their passions, and you know, I would even say like sometimes university is the solution. Sometimes
it's not. Yeah, and that's something I've had to learn, because like I used to have like some resentment with the Hispanic community, and this is real. But like the Hispanic community, like in my hometown, like there wasn't a lot of people that wanted to go to a 4-year university, and I used to hold like a grudge against them because I was like, I really wish they were here with me, and like that's where like my grudge with them would be, and like I wish they like came with me, because like, you know, in the computer science major, like sometimes I'm the only Hispanic. Usually there's only 2 girls, like in a class of like 30 and 40 guys, like, and it's like it gets lonely, you know, and I would love to see more representation, and I wish they came with me, but I've learned that like just because the way I live my life isn't the only way to live live a life. And shout out to my therapist for teaching me that.
Shout out.
Yeah, Lysandria. She's great. But yeah, like it made me realize that, because I mean they're happy, you know, and I know for a fact like money doesn't buy happiness, you know, and then that's also why like I'm okay with me not taking like the traditional like computer science to software engineer route, even though that would probably get me more money, because like realistically, like I grew up low income, like my mom would stay at home watching the youngest kid, like they had 3 kids, so we were like a family of 5, and my father was working in a factory providing for all of us with like the very little he got. And so it's like, okay, well, I know that I can at least live off this. So anything more, like I'm more than grateful for, because I know realistically I could live, you know, I could be okay. I'll be okay.
Yeah, no. That's true. I mean, at least my parents as well, kind of where they started and where they're at now, but they were able to live with so little. And some of the stories is like, all I had was a loaf of bread and maybe some eggs, and I had a baby. What do you do? You know, but it's just, I think it's also motivating, because it's like, this is where you come from, and now what?
This is where you are.
You're here.
You get to look back. I'm very proud of like my parents 100%, because they were able to push out like 3 kids, and my brother went to college, I'm going to college, and my sister, she is like, she's going to go to college and stuff like that. And so like they're doing a really good job at like investing in their kids and letting us like follow our own dreams and paths. So I'm very, very grateful for that. So that's the privilege I know that I have.
Let's talk about that a little more. Where are your parents from?
So my mom's from Michoacan and my dad's from Guanajuato, but they're from the same town. So like half of the town is in Michoacan and the other side's in Guanajuato. And our house is on the Guanajuato side, but I could walk 5 minutes to my grandma's house and I'd be in a different state. So it's like, and you can tell by the roads, like one has like very paved roads, cement roads, and the other one has like bricks, and my car will be like, I'm not bricks, like pebbles, and my car will be like this. But one side will have running water and the other one doesn't. So it's like pros and cons, you know, of each side. But yeah, but it's like a small town in like the mountains, you know, and that's when I really started realizing like, I was looking at the structure you gave me, and I think one of the questions was like, what do you do it for? Like what was your reasoning for doing it? And I think my first go-to answer was for my parents, right? For myself. But I think the real reason what drives me more than anything else is that I have the opportunity to, you know, like when I go to Mexico and I see like where my parents came from, like this small town in like, in the mountains in Mexico, right? Like how the heck did they go from there to here to for me to study tech, like something that's like hard to wrap my head around, you know, the newest technologies to begin with, and it started from my family history in that small town in Mexico that's been there for generations. So it's like crazy.
I would assume for you as well, but you rock it with a lot of pride.
I try to, and I went to a predominantly white high school, and so I went through that whole thing where like, and again, like I like separated myself from the Hispanic community, and that's one of my biggest regrets too, of like having that mentality, because again, like not a lot of people wanted to go to a 4-year university, so I felt like I needed to surround myself with people who wanted to go to a 4-year university, like because I just wanted tunnel vision to get to my goal, and it did get me to my goal, but like it made me lose my connection with the local Hispanic community, and I've regained it, and I'm like building it again now that I'm in college, and realizing that I wish I had them here, and that I don't need to like take them out of my life because they didn't follow the same path I did. But yeah, so like when I got to high school, most of my AP classes were very predominantly white, and so I went through the phase of like, I don't fit in, like I don't look like these people, so I would buy like the clothes they buy, and you know, I would listen to the music that they listen to, and that didn't make me feel less of an outcast, you know, even though I looked like outside wear was like exactly like theirs, that didn't make me feel more like them in reality. So I ditched that. I started going to Mexico again every summer. So we would spend like a whole month in Mexico every year, and that really got me to fall in love with my culture, just being fully immersed into it. And like my grandma's my twin, like we're the same we're the same person. Like I'm like an early person, like I love the mornings. I love when the sun rises, like that specific sunrise is like my favorite part of the day. But most people aren't morning people, but my grandma would wake up earlier than me, and she'd be like, come on, like why aren't you awake? Like okay, so we would wake up at 6 a.m. and we're like twins. And just like, and my cousins too in Mexico, like their story is even more inspirational to me than anything else, because they still lived in Mexico. They still lived in that town, and they were still able to go through all schooling to go to high school and like off of scholarships, and then get scholarships to move to the capital of their city to go to university. And like I literally have a cousin that's being like a chemical engineer, and I'm like, the fact that you were still able to do that in Mexico, in our town, it's a lot more impressive than me knowing that I have those opportunities here. I feel like it was just easier for me to do it. So despite me doing something hard, the fact that she's doing this but over there is even more impressive to me. And so I feel like they inspire me too. Like if they can get through it, then I can definitely get through it.
No, I mean the representation that you hold as a woman in STEM, but then a Latina
which is a different layer. Yeah, we only make up 2% of the whole tech industry.
Wow.
Yeah, so but it's gonna go up. It's going up.
Yeah. No, most definitely. Was there a moment in your life where I guess you felt like, I'm destined for greatness, I'm destined for this, like I know that this is meant for me and I deserve it and I'm gonna go get it? Was there ever a moment where you felt like, yeah, like I'm her?
I don't know, because I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome, and I deal with a lot of like self-doubt. Like that's like all my traumas stems into like the thought of self-doubt, so I really deal with self-doubt. But that's very like contradicting to what a lot of people think of me, to be honest. Like that's like something I've had to deal with a lot of my life, of like people like, that's why I feel really weird about people giving me compliments and stuff like that, because I feel like a fraud, honestly, because like I struggle, like we all had struggle in the background, right? And so it's hard to get compliments and like get a lot of praise for stuff, knowing that in reality I don't feel like I'm doing enough, or like me not being satisfied with myself.
Wow.
So it's a lot of compliments go in one ear and out the other, and that's something that I'm working on, of like being able to accept compliments and be able to accept that like I'm accomplishing things and stuff like that. And I'm working on that currently still, but like, yeah, like that's been like the weird dynamic to have, of like not being where you want to be, but other people like really like look, like, I don't want to say looking up to me, because I don't feel like that, but like acknowledging your accomplishments more than you're acknowledging yourself. And it's like, that's been kind of weird and stuff like that.
I would say it's definitely important to take a minute
to reflect,
look back. Yeah, I did that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's important for, I would say, your inner child, who you were at a younger age, because at one point you wanted to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think about that all the time, honestly, because I like even at my internship, I'm like if I were to tell, you know, like 5th grade Denise, or like literally like preschool Denise, if I were to able to tell her that the girl that couldn't afford a desktop in her living room, or like a family computer or anything like that, if that she was going to work with this for the rest of her life, like,
wow,
she would probably not believe me.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And I hope this doesn't go one ear and out the other,
No,
but
thanks.
it's
Thanks.
very admirable. And, you know, I'm sure you know this. If you don't, like, you have a community that looks up to you, and a community that respects you, and computer science is tough.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough. But again, like, if you're passionate about it, that'll take you very far in your career. It's funny that you say community behind me, because I didn't realize how much of an impact that, or how many people really could be watching you, or like paying attention to what you do. And I didn't realize that until my senior year at high school. I go to the second biggest high school in the state. My graduating class was around 900 people, for retrospect. Yeah. And it was a long graduation. But my senior year, like, my friend wanted to do homecoming court, and I didn't really think that was my vibe, really, because at the time I was ready to get out of there. I was ready to go to college. Like, I felt like I again outgrew my environment, so I was ready for the next chapter. And so like I was just kind of laying in the back. Also, it was like the election, so like like, you know, and there's a lot of people that didn't like me for who I was, you know, and so that made me just want to stay in the background and not really like get attention at all. And so like homecoming court was not something I wanted to do at all, but I went with my friend who did want to do it, and I was also just nosy to see who was signing up, you know. And so I looked at all the girls that were signed up, and I noticed there was no Hispanic girl on there. And I was like, no way, because I grew up with the community, right? I know they're here. I went to middle school with them, you know. I just don't see them anymore. And so I don't know, it's just something in me that was like, if this core is really representing the whole school and they're not having any Hispanic representation, then I don't think this is accurate at all. And so that's when I was like, well, if nobody's gonna do it, I guess I'll put my name down. And then I didn't even think I was going to get homecoming court. I just wanted a Hispanic name to be on there. And so because I was just chilling in the back. I didn't really want to get attention, or like I didn't really care to talk to too many people, just my inner circle. And so I was surprised because for homecoming court, only the senior class gets it. And again, I disconnected from the Hispanic community. So I was like, nobody knows me. Nobody's going to vote for me. Like, I would never get it. I just want a Hispanic name on there. And then I ended up getting homecoming court. With senior. Yeah, but what was even crazier is in the whole school votes, right? And so this is like the second biggest school in the whole state. And so it's like 4,000 people or whatever. And they voted. And then this was like, I was so happy that I got homecoming court, only because you get to walk on the field with your father. And so and it's a really, really big stadium, and then a lot of people come to the football game, and I was just really excited to like walk in the middle of the football field with my father, because it would be like his I literally wore a red dress, and I made him get a blue suit with a burgundy tie, because I wanted us to be dressed as the American colors, because like this was me showing him like everything like he worked for, because it's like a huge stadium filled with people, and like we get to stand in the middle of it and present ourselves. And I was like, look, that this is the American dream. So I was like, so we literally wore American colors. It was really cute. It was very special to me. And I ended up getting runner up. And so like that was crazy, from not thinking I would get in a homecoming court to literally almost winning the crown. And I didn't even like promote anything. Like there were people that were like promoting and like trying to buy votes and stuff like that. And like
buy votes in high school.
yeah, and I didn't even know when the election was happening. That's how unaware and uninterested I really cared for it. And the fact that I was still able to get second place made me like feel like, oh, I got third place actually, second runner up. But but nonetheless, it was still like that meant like thousands of votes, like hundreds of votes, right? Of people voting for me, and that made me realize that like even though I don't talk to people, and a lot of people were coming up to me and being like, I voted for you because I think you're the nicest person out of all the girls in the team. Or and that was such a compliment to me, and like it made me feel really warm inside, that because a lot of people were just noticing, like even if I wasn't trying to be in like the light or anything, people were still noticing that I was in the AP classes, that I was nice to people, that I cared about people and stuff like that. And that made me realize the impact that people were paying attention.
Yeah.
And then once I got to college, that was even more amplified, as people from my Hispanic community would send me random messages and be like, I'm so happy, I'm so proud of you, like I'm so glad you're doing this. And it's like, dang, I haven't talked to you since middle school, but I'm so glad you reached out. Like I can't believe you're still trying to keep in touch with me. That's insane. And that's what really made me want to be more in touch with my community, my local community back home too.
Yeah, people are always watching.
Yeah.
People are always
watching.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's real. It's especially because like growing up, I wouldn't say that there was an individual from a career standpoint where I was like, okay, I want to be like that person. How did you have someone in your life where you said, okay, they have a successful career in computer science, I want to have a career similar to them, that was accessible?
Okay, so my brother, he started out with chemical engineering, and then he changed something kind of similar to comp sci, but not really. And so now he's in the tech industry, but it's completely different from the path that I'm taking right now. So like, as far as like, and honestly, I think the misconception is like that my brother is like a very big, he is a support system for me, but he is not holding my hand and like giving me connections or networks or anything like that. He wants me to have my own experience, and I'm very grateful for that. And plus we're going left field. So like, he's like, I think he's in management too. I can't remember his exact position, but like I'm going the more like, he's product management, and I want to go more project management and in the consulting world, technology consulting. So that's very different. So even if he wanted to provide me with help, he doesn't really know what this is like. So I'm pretty much on my own right now, which is kind of scary. It's the first time I feel like I'm like truly like have zero idea. Like everything's very unknown to me, and I'm like seeing it for the first time. And that's kind of weird to think about. Like nobody in my family has ever seen anything like this before, right. And having that experience. So I'm like trying to navigate it, but I'm kind of happy that I'm making my own experience, and I don't have like other voices in the background, because I feel like my family is like very like they want to control my actions still sometimes, and like but my career path, and like, and it's funny because like I was trying to tell my mom about the dress code for my like job, and she kept trying to like offer me ideas, be like, you could wear this, and I'm like, well, Mom, I don't really think that's appropriate for work. Like she wanted me to wear like leggings, and I was like, Mom, I don't think I could wear that. Like, yeah. But she was like so sorry, like she was confident. She was like, you could totally wear this, and I'm like, Mom, like no. And this is like just talking to her about like what this is like because she hasn't gone corporate, and I don't know if she'll ever will, and so it's like trying to like paint this picture of what I'm doing and explaining it to them of what this new thing that nobody else has done is like.
That is very interesting. I'm glad you brought this up, because I feel as though it's a common case.
I do too.
Like you do something, it's great with your career, and then you come back to your village and you're like, this is what I'm doing. But because it's so different, they don't really understand what it is that you do. Yeah. And it's almost like you can come back and say, hey, I'm working on this, I'm working on that, and it's really exciting, but that's all you can share. Yeah. And so does it ever get lonely? I just think it's real life, because I assume we're saying, because like my immigrant family, and like, most of my family hasn't graduated from high school. Like my father didn't even graduate middle school. Like
You know, so this is like very, very out of their box, and like you're just trying to paint pictures of them. But also, like, is it really that different from like your friend that's majoring in something else? Like, I could explain all these technology terms to my friend, but they wouldn't know a lick of it, you know?
That's a good point.
You know, and they're telling me a bunch of their stuff and I don't know a lick of that. So it's like, you know, just, you know, respecting each other's fields and like open to like trying to visualize it or trying to learn a little bit. And so, but I do sometimes catch myself just being like, I work with computers, even though that's necessarily not the whole story, or, you know, but that's just like a simple way to do it. Cause I've tried explaining it to them and I just don't think they're like clicking it all together. Like they still think I just work in computers. So like, it's, so, you know, like, and that's true to an extent. So.
Right. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I think one of the goals of this platform is to empower the individuals that come on and saying, like, we may not understand everything that you do, but we see you.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you, and we appreciate the representation. Yeah. And we're happy, and we're here to celebrate your wins.
Yeah.
So congratulations for everything that you've been able to accomplish.
You too.
Where you're at. Yeah, right. Where you're at. It's big.
Thanks. Thanks. I feel like it's weird because, like, I don't know. Because I feel like I'm just starting my career. Yeah. And so I feel like there's a long way to go. But it is true. Like, the fact that I could even get here and get to start is a blessing in itself.
Yeah. No, I mean, and really it's one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Every day.
One step at a time. So I really appreciate the time. Yeah. I have a question, though. Yes. Okay. So we know about Denise. We know some of Denise's background. Where does Denise want to go?
I don't know. I feel like because I've taken a non-traditional route, or will probably be going a non-traditional route for computer science, I'm kind of at a place where I'm very open-minded to everything. I just feel like it'll be okay. Like, I'm not putting too much stress on myself right now. Like, I'm trying to take the time to really learn everything I can so I can really understand what interests me the most within computer science. Because obviously I like technology and innovation and all that, but it's really trying to figure out where within that wide scope of it, tech, you know, what is the, you know, tech industry is so big is what I'm trying to say, and it's really trying to figure out where I want to belong within that tech industry. And I feel like the beginning of my career is really the time that I get to explore the most. Not to say that later down you can't change your path, because I probably will. Like, I plan on probably going back to get an MBA eventually, especially if my company pays for it. That would be great. But yeah, I definitely feel like I'll probably go back and get that eventually, and then come back and then probably start a family and get married and stuff like that. But I'm definitely, that's on the back burner. I'm definitely the person, I'm very hard on like putting my career first right now, because like it's like this is the time for me to figure out myself. And so I'm definitely number one priority right now in my life, to be honest.
What are some actionable items as far as prioritizing yourself and putting yourself first?
Sleep. I would say, like, making sure I get the right amount of sleep, and like listening to my body. Like, if I'm tired, like, I'm tired. If I need to eat, I need to eat. That's a big thing, especially in like corporate world. Like, I don't know, like, there's been times even in my internship where I get really consumed by the work I go, and then now the hour that I planned for lunch passed, you know, and it's like I need to sit down and feed myself and take care of myself, and like and also giving myself personal time. Like, I'm definitely the type of person that puts a lot on their plate and tries to do a lot of stuff, and I realize when you do that, you really don't get time for yourself, and you don't get time to have your own personal hobbies. Like, I've really been into like trying to figure out what I like, because I was doing so much stuff, and then at the end of the day I was like, who's Denise? Like, what does she like to do? What are her hobbies? What are her interests? Because I was just so tired after doing everything in the day that I never really got the time to like do stuff for myself and like what my interests are, and like, or silly little things like playing Nintendo games or building a Lego set, like something silly and like something that's just like doesn't have to do doesn't have to be as productive as everything else, you know. Like I feel like I always have to be super hyper productive and like get a bunch of stuff done, you know, to feel worthy. But honestly, like just being yourself, you're worthy.
Yeah.
Regardless, you know.
Yeah.
And I deserve to make a Lego set sometimes, you know.
There's this book that I've read. It stresses the importance of sometimes doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because he mentions that that's where he feels as though he gets like his best ideas. He's more so within the creative end of things, and I believe he's a writer and also an artist. But he mentions like, hey, it's okay to take a break.
Yeah. And I really figured that out because I hit burnout at the end of my junior year, like at the beginning of second semester, actually. I was accomplishing a lot of stuff, but I was burnt out. I was so tired, and it was really hard to get through the next, like all the activities for the day because I just burnt out. And that's what like forced myself. It was crazy because when I started experiencing burnt out that weekend, my mom called me and she was like, do you want to go to Mexico? I was like, girl, it's February. What do you mean? Like, it was literally February. I was like, I literally have an exam on Monday. What do you mean? And she was like, well, it was on Tuesday, actually. And she wanted to hop on a plane on Tuesday to go to Mexico for a week because it was like my town was having its like biggest party in February. That's like my town's party. And they haven't gone in like 20 years. So they're like, you know what? They just had the urge to go and they invited me. And I was like, girl, I'm in college. Like, I don't know if I can do it. But luckily, like I told my teachers and they actually pushed the exam to Monday. I took it a day early and I hopped on a plane Tuesday and was gone for a week. And I was like very happy for that like peace because I like kind of took a lot of time to sit on my grandma's like roof and look at the mountains, you know, and just really reflect on like why am I burnt out? Like, why do I feel this way? What do I need to do to change the way I feel? And I came to the conclusion I just needed to put less stuff on my plate and, you know, give some time to myself.
Self-awareness is important. Being aware of where you're at. Like, at the end of the day, it's your temple, right? How are you treating it?
Yeah.
And if you know, you can do many things and go accomplish everything you want. But at the end of the day, like, if you're not good with yourself, what? Then what?
Yeah, exactly.
For what?
I agree. Because if you're gonna do something difficult or challenging, like if you're gonna run a marathon, you have to take care of your body. You have to like eat well. You have to sleep well. You have to like make sure you prep yourself for what you're about to do. And I think that goes same for like any career projects as well. Like if you're not taking care of yourself, how can you put your best work you know, forward?
That's true. You are 21. Okay, almost 22. I was counting the 9 months.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
22 in September. Drake comes to Charlotte on my birthday, actually.
Really? Are you going?
Me and my friends are gonna buy tickets. I'm such a concert junkie now.
Yeah.
Now that I have a little bit of money, it's like, what can I see live? Honestly.
I'll sing right now if you want.
Okay, okay. Like, what kind of music do you sing?
Just a quick question is, you're 21. You've been able to do and achieve incredible things. Congratulations. What advice would you give to your younger self?
To believe in yourself. That's so generic. Oh my God. But just to be like, you know, your interests maybe don't lie. Like, I feel like what you're naturally interested in is like something like you can put in the work to be good at, you know, or do. So like I would tell myself like, so what if like these other kids like, you know, have a head start or like have private tutors or go to SAT prep classes or whatever, like you can accomplish the same thing, you know? And I would tell her to like know that you're in your classes for a reason, that you're in these programs for a reason, and just because you don't look like anybody else doesn't mean you don't belong there.
You are worthy. You belong.
You belong.
That's important. That's great. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For sharing us moments where you dared to do what seemed to be impossible.
Yeah, once, yeah.
But was it?
No.
And is it?
No.
So thank you so much for your time, Denise. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Take care.